G'day everyone. Tuesday the 1st of July. Tuesday the 1st of July. Happy new financial year, Johnny Larder.
Yes, here we are, end of year. People will be getting their books ready for the tax office and the accountants and everyone else. So, not the best time of year, Hoodie, but plenty of sales on as well, I think, isn't there? End of year sales. So maybe those that have got a bit of money can buy new cars or new house to sleep in.
Not many of
Maybe.
those around, though. Not many people with money around at the moment, thanks to Albo.
Albo.
Yeah,
Mm.
Johnny, we had a quiet week last week because you were in Canberra for most of that, and there's been a fair bit going on. You got your photo taken with the Governor General, and a lot of people are saying, yeah, she said she'd look into it. Yeah, we've heard that before, I know. But anyhow, we want to discuss what went on in Canberra. What were your thoughts on it, and see where we go from there. Also, as chairman of the ACA, you had a couple of meetings with the ACA, so time to get a bit of a larder briefing, I think, mate.
Is that what we're going to call it?
Let's call it a larder briefing.
Oh, fair enough. Look, it was very cold and windy, I've got to say, down in Canberra. Hoodie, it's not my favourite place in Australia. I've got to say, no disrespect to those living there, but it's a pretty bleak old place. It's got that sort of government overtone to it, as it's just I
Yeah.
don't know, something about the place. But anyway, look, we went to the conference, and yeah, I was a bit I was a well, we had the notice of motion that went forward from Snowy Valleys Council and was obviously supported by numerous others for the Royal Commission into the handling of COVID. It managed to get onto the books, which was a great thing in itself because the ALGA could very well have deemed it not appropriate and it not even be voted on. So, I mean, just to even make it to a vote is a success in my view. So that was a good outcome. So we get to Canberra and it's a 2.5 day event essentially, and the the motions there was a couple of hundred of them, but unfortunately the motion for the Royal Commission was 191, and I could see that progress was very slow, and we weren't getting there because the way they stage these things is they basically have the speakers, the ministers, they have little programs and breakouts on emergency management or on housing or on roads, and then you convene and lunch and all that sort of stuff. So you can imagine it's a slow old process. And then in the afternoon or after lunch, they start to deal with these motions. So unfortunately, it didn't see the light of day. It didn't actually get voted on. It was one of a handful towards the end that didn't end up being deliberated on. So I suppose out of Canberra, how do we view that? Well, a bit disappointing that it wasn't voted on, but I suppose it's better to have it sitting there in limbo as a motion than having it defeated in the first half hour, which could have been the case. I mean, who knows? I mean, I say that because. What concerned me, Hoodie, was other events there. Now, yes, there were speakers and the like, and I managed to grab hold of the Governor General for a few minutes and speak to her in a very positive way about and respectful way about what's going on with the vaccine injured and the safety around the vaccines. And it seemed to me that, like everyone else, she's probably been fed information that's incorrect. Give her the benefit of the doubt. She said she'd look into it, and I think it's up to all Australians out there to send her information, send her your stories, and see how we go. I mean, we can only give her that information, and hopefully she'll act on it. But I think the story of the event, Hoodie, for me was Dr. Ann Webster is the Shadow Minister for Local Government, and she's the member for Mallee. She's a National Party member, and the Minister for Local Government had spoken and given a talk, and then it was the opposition minister's turn to get up. Now, uh, she spoke about Indigenous title and amongst other things, but she spoke about Indigenous title and about uh, tourism opportunities and developments and progress being stifled by this constant need to look for cultural items that may or may not be in the soil, or this is a native title and we've got to do searches and we've got to go through the land title office and all this. So all this stuff is holding back progress. And she was correct, 100% correct in what she was saying, in that it's complete uh, garbage, a lot of it. And they start looking for cultural items in the ground, and 2 years later they find nothing, and everything's up in the air. People have gone broke in the interim, waiting for these things to kick off. So it's a real problem. Now, during that speech, members of the Alga board, who were elected mayors and councillors, there's probably half a dozen of them, more, probably 10, I suppose, sitting up on the stage. I reckon probably at least four of them got up and walked off the stage while she was giving this speech.
What?
Yeah, yeah, it was unreal. In addition to probably 100 councillors in the auditorium actually walking out as well.
That's a disgrace.
Disgrace. Uh, Now, I when she finished, I followed her and I went and spoke to her and said, "Look, I want to congratulate you for having the courage to even bring that up." I said the majority of the room in there would agree with the concerns, the valid concerns that you're raising. Uh, and I thank you for it, for having the courage, and I'd love the opportunity to talk with you about the mess that's gone on with COVID as well, because that's been another issue that we've had difficulty getting traction with. And you've obviously got the courage to speak up about this, so we'd be grateful to have a meeting with you about that. And she's open to that, so she did send me an invitation that night to come up to Parliament House, but I was heading back to Tumut, so I couldn't. But we will definitely take her up on that opportunity to go and meet with her. But I think the worst part about this, Hoodie, was the Alga people then came back. So the elected president of this Alga came back after the break, and then I actually text a couple of people because I just couldn't believe what I wrote down. And this is what happened. I mean, it was just beyond.
ALGA is the Australian Local Government Association, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Yep.
So they're like the overriding group that's representative of. So there was about 1,400 delegates there from around Australia. So
Mm.
1,400 councillors, or general managers. Um, so the ALGA president just got up and said the shadow minister's views are not representative of ALGA, and
What?
then yeah, and then I mean, how does he know that without a vote? I mean, they have a vote on everything, but suddenly this isn't the view of ALGA. Um, and then he said, "I'm going to break the program and give a councillor from Palm Island a right of reply."
What?
Yeah. And then a councillor from Palm Island got up and then, was basically then berating her for what she said. And then he went on to say words to the effect of, and I might not be 100% accurate with this, and but words to this effect. He said, just because they lost the election doesn't give them the right to kick the black football around.
What?
Mm.
John, that's just a prime example of virtue signaling. That is. I mean, who is the ALGA president? Is he a mayor or something?
He would be, yeah. I just figured his name because they're so. Look, they're all woke, these people. This is the problem, Hoddy. They've just lost the plot. And I think that's indicative of where we are. And I think the problem of putting up sensible uh, motions like the one into the Royal Commission. I mean, I spoke to a few people in there, and yeah, and their attitude is, well, Royal Commissions are expensive. They won't achieve anything. It's a waste of time. So why would we vote for that? COVID's over. Just get on with it. So it's a real uphill battle.
See, therein lies the problem. Let's just get over it. Let's
Mm,
pretend it never happened.
yeah.
Well, where does that leave all the people who are drastically affected or even died from that? Where does that leave them? Okay,
Yeah.
so, all right, let's pose the other question to Alga, John. What happened when Captain Phillip sailed into Sydney Harbour and colonised Australia after Captain Cook, several years before had planted the British flag. Let's apply that mentality to it. That's all over now. Let's just get on with it. Let's forget all about all this other rubbish. Let's get on with it.
Mm, mm,
What about all the infected bloods people who got tainted blood products? Oh,
mm.
let's just forget about that. It's all over. It's over for you if you weren't affected by it. But what about the people who are affected by it? Is that what we've become? This is madness. And if you ignore history, you're doomed to repeat it, aren't you? So what are
Yeah.
these people going to do? Oh, we've moved on now. What are they going to do when the next big thing happens? Oh, what do we do now? Here's our golden opportunity to glean great knowledge, understanding, and set in place much better policies to deal with these things. Actually, we don't have to set in place better policies. We have to use the ones we originally had. They were fine. We've got to stop fiddling with them. So here's a golden opportunity, but I know, let's not do that. Let's fluff around with welcome to country. Let's fluff around with smoking ceremonies. Let's fluff around with LGBTIQ agendas. Let's fluff around with, let's get involved. Let's get really involved behind Ukraine and cause division between people who support Ukraine and people who don't. Let's get involved and talk about the Middle East, and let's condemn anyone who thinks Israel's done the wrong thing. Let's condemn all of them. Let's condemn anybody who has a bit of national pride and wants to fly the flag. Let's involve ourselves in all that BS, and the real issues of life, let's forget about them.
Mm.
How did you contain yourself?
Oh, it's a very difficult one.
I
Really.
know it is, but was there any, when that rebuke happened about the shadow minister from the chair, was there any cries, any howls of discontent from the group?
No, not that I could hear, but like it's a big audience there. I mean, I think people were probably saying things to themselves and to their neighbour and neighbours, but I think the reality is, the left are always going on about this stuff, but it's always the people in the middle and to the left of centre and the right of centre that are respectful. Uh, it's always those far left nut jobs that are just crazy, crazy people that want to make a scene, and it's really a sad indictment on where we're at, isn't it? That you would walk off a stage. Like, why do you walk off a stage like that? Or start piling out of the audience. I mean, it's madness. I mean, you've got a shadow minister up before you talking about sensible and rational issues and concerns that are going on in the community that are a real stumbling block to progress. Um, and they can't say it's not. I mean, I've experienced it myself. I know we tried to get an RFS fire station put onto a piece of land, and the RFS ended up having to change their whole plans about where it was going because it had to go to the land council and it had to be ticked off, and then there was some concern that they were going to charge them a whole heap of money that wasn't budgeted for to do all these native title searches, and because they technically own the piece of land, they wanted compensation, and so it ended up going somewhere else. So I know it happens.
Yeah, well, you know what? No wonder people have lost faith in government. I mean, Professor Jerry Brady says if you create any organisation with any kind of hierarchy in it, you invite psychopaths in because they have this want to control and need to have power and all that sort of stuff. And you know what? I just don't know where. Well, I kind of, from a biblical perspective, know where it's all going to go. It's all going to get sorted, believe me. But I had an interesting debate with some people over the weekend who were saying that, Christians who really believe in Jesus shouldn't get involved in politics. Um, and, they quote Romans 13. Romans 13 basically says, the Bible says you should abide by the lawful administration of government by your elected authorities. That's paraphrasing it. And you know what? That's true because it helps establish law and order, but they have to be lawful. Topher wrote a book called, Good People Break Bad Laws. And they said, well, Christian people, we're not meant to get involved in politics. Well, that's what happened in Nazi Germany. The Friedrich Bonhoeffer ended up dying in a concentration camp just weeks before the end of the war because he was one of very few church uh, clergy who stood up against Hitler. And Hitler's mantra to the clergy in the church when they were talking about separation of church and state was, you guys look after the spiritual needs of the people and I'll look after the country. Well, that didn't go well, and people can argue why that didn't go well, and there's lots of logical argument. But I go back to the end of the slave trade. Now, John Newton was a ship's captain of a slaver, and he was one of the most degraded human beings on the planet who saw the light on a cruise one day when they were 11 days in really bad weather across the Atlantic. And he saw the horror that was going on, people dying in the bowels of his ship. And the words of his mother came back to him where she was a very devout Christian woman. And John Newton gave up slaving and he went to work in a monastery and became a man of the cloth, and he wrote the hymn Amazing Grace. Everybody on the planet knows the song Amazing Grace. Now, he was mentoring William Wilberforce in the mid 1700s, who was trying desperately to abolish the slave trade. Now, during the course of that trying to abolish the slave trade and not getting anywhere for years, William Wilberforce, who was a man of great faith as well, decided he was going to become a man of the cloth. He was going to become a minister. And it was William Pitt and several others. William Pitt was the Prime Minister at the time, who was a friend of William Wilberforce, and several others lobbied him hard to stay in the fight, and he did. And it took him 17 years, but he abolished the slave trade. Now, if he had gone to follow his calling that he thought was his calling into the church, the slave trade would have been abolished eventually, but so much misery was ended. So to anyone out there thinking you shouldn't be involved in politics or talking about it or even running for election because you're a Christian, I think we really need to rethink that, because bad things happen when good people do nothing. Mm. So, when I'm bringing all that up, John, in the context of what you've just spent a week doing in Canberra, which, to my way of thinking, I believe that whole event in Canberra, from the basis of everything you've said, was a complete and utter waste of time and money. What did it actually achieve? Can you highlight any achievements from it?
No, look, this is the problem with these things, Hoodie. They generally talk fest. It's very difficult to change the pathway of governments. Very, very, very difficult. And look, the only way to actually, have any success with these things is to actively, lobby ministers or or and that's how you have to do it. I'll give you an example. In terms of our council, there's a back road that goes from Canberra to Tumen called the Brindabella Road, and it's virtually a dirt road. It's got sealed parts, um, and there's been about $30+ million put into it by the Labor government, which has been great to get that road upgraded. Um, but the Canberra side of it is the issue. So because we get on really well with the local government minister, Christian McBain. uh, One of the councillors was able to organise a meeting with Andrew Barr, the Chief Minister, was organising it anyway, and her to talk directly about funding for that road. So, I mean, they're the sorts of things that you can do if you've got a mind to actually put them together. But I mean, these things just don't happen. You have to be proactive there. I mean, you don't if you want to go to these conferences and just sit around and eat cheesecake and wait for the curry to come out, that I mean that's what you can do, or you get busy in the background, uh, and networking with the people that are actually in charge of the purse strings and the decisions, and that's how you get things done. I mean that's why I took the opportunity to speak to the Governor General. um, we weren't there to speak about COVID, but it was a perfect opportunity to um, have a one-on-one with her about what's going on. I mean, I don't know that she's aware. I know she is now. So that's what outcomes can be generated from these things. So in terms of them being a success, um, they're probably, when you look at them wholeheartedly, they're probably not. They're probably a complete waste of time. But you can, by having all these people in the one spot, it is helpful.
Yeah, yeah. No, networking is important. There's a lot of mercy drops when you get people together like that. But there's a motion being put forward at Coffs Harbour City regarding the Port Hedland motion, and that's been lobbied pretty hard by some people down that way, and let's pray that that has some success. I mean, you can't blame people for feeling like we're not getting anywhere. But does that mean we give up? I'll go back to William Wilberforce. It took him 17 years to get that bill passed to abolish slavery,
Mm.
slave trade and the way he did it was a stroke of genius. And there's lots of people out there with some very good ideas to deal with it. But the things that concern me is, John, there are a lot of people who say we should get the Governor General to call fresh elections. All right, so the Governor General calls a fresh election, and we get another election campaign, and we get the same parties running. And what does that achieve? Fresh election. Well, what are there things in place for that to bear fruit if it happens?
Mm.
Um, how do you do that? What do you? It's all right to have these ideas. Look, there's a lot of people with different ideas about changing government, and you ask them for a 12-point action plan, and they just go silent. You
Mm.
know, where do you go with that stuff? This is
Well,
the
look,
problem.
this happened 50 years ago, Hoodie. I mean, so it's very difficult to retrospectively, you know, uh, try and work out what happened in 1973 when they've somehow allegedly changed the constitution somehow, or whatever they think's happened. I don't know what's going on. I mean, I don't know enough about it. I do know that whatever's happened is entrenched now. And so it's calling on the Governor General to remove the Prime Minister is really a waste of time. It's not going to happen.
And
And
even if it does, what next?
what next? I mean, this is where we've got to make sure our energy is channeled in the right area where we can make a difference. And I think that's the issue. I think we go off on tangents in areas where we can't make a difference. I think if everyone went down the police station and demanded they investigate these COVID murders, then maybe that might have an outcome. That's something we can do. Everyone can take the movie witness statement down there. They can type out their own letter. They can go down there and say, "I demand that you do something."
Hmm. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
look at your friends there saying about the politics, Hoodie, that were there on the weekend. I mean, even it's a circle, isn't it? I mean, it says that you've that you've got to obey the law of the land, and those that are elected. But what are they saying? That they don't, politics and religion, you can't elect anyone? Are they going to abstain from voting?
Well, I say to people, what if the government of the day decides to ease the overpopulation burden in the planet? You've got to put to death your firstborn child, or your next born, or you've got to abort the fetus that you're carrying around. That not fetus, it's a person that you're carrying around in your womb. The father of the house has to make sure that that's dealt with. Would you do it as a Christian? Would Christians do that? I'd be horrified if they said yes. So, the whole thing about all of that is you're meant to obey the law of God above all else. And what is the law of God? They're the 10 Commandments, and they are the foundation of every democratic constitution that was established back in the days when faith in God meant something, and people were of their word. They were established back then. Now that's all been traded for corporate governance and governments, and it's policy manuals that have taken precedent now. So we can't just lay down and not stand for what's right. We have to do what's right. But it's easy for people to rattle a gate, to yell and scream at politicians. But what are you going to replace it with? The pendulum keeps swinging one side to the other. Did the French Revolution work? How was that experiment? It was one of the darkest periods in Earth's history. These things, they seem like a good idea at the time, but we live in a world of a swinging pendulum, and every now and then it passes through our airspace, and we get to enjoy that time in the sun where we're happy with what's going on, and then it goes too far to the right. And then you get dictatorships forming, and then it comes back and it swings too far to the left, and you get another kind of dictatorship forming. And you get this woke stuff, which I remind people, woke stands for willfully overlooking known evil. And that's what it is. And so we've got governments. When you've got government representatives getting up and walking off stage because they're virtue signalling to the Aboriginal people because of something that a lot of Aboriginal people agree with is just rubbish anyway. Mm. You ask the average Aboriginal community member. I've got an Aboriginal community down the road, and I've spoken to several of them in town. They reckon welcome to country is a load of BS. It doesn't mean anything to them. It doesn't mean anything to them. So, who's driving this agenda? What's gotten into Albanese's craw that he feels he needs to divide the country over issues like LGBT and race, critical race theory, the climate change agenda? All this stuff is just, at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything. All it does is divide people who are willing to get out there and do some work to make the country flow and make people's lives rich. Not rich financially, but rich in a way that they feel like they're blessed by being in this country. Mm-hmm. I don't know, Johnny. But you know what? Anyhow, we keep going. What else can you do?
What else can you do? No, not a lot.
We could shut down Club Grubbery and we say, righto, that's it. We've done our bit. It's all over now. But where does that all leave us? What if everybody just took their bat and ball and went home? It doesn't leave us anywhere, So anyway,
we keep fighting.
We keep fighting, and we need to bring this one to a close because we're about to interview a very special lady, Sarah Cook, who's written an incredible book. And once again, this conversation is going to be about. Actually, it's quite timely because we're going to be talking about that attitude of, that COVID, we're through that now. We're finished with that now. Only in this particular issue, John, we're talking about the millions of people who have been sexually abused as children and not been properly acknowledged for what they've been through. So we'll be talking with author Sarah Cook. And so, Johnny, we'll bring this one to a close with a prayer, shall we?
Sounds good.
Lord Father in heaven, thank you. I want to thank you for my mate, John, Lord, that he's got the tenacity and the energy to keep turning up at these events, Lord. And he knows that there are times, look, you can be evicted and then the media paint you out to be some loony and nothing. There's no traction in that. Or you can go there and stridently work behind the scenes. And John is consistently doing that. even in his role as chairman of the ACA. So, Father God, we just thank you for John, and we thank you for keeping us focused in the light of truth in a rational way as we search for solution. Because this is a wonderful country, Lord. You created it, and you created those who live in it. So we ask you to bless us in Jesus' name. Amen. You've often been heard to say,
you just couldn't make this stuff up.
You couldn't make this stuff up. And stay out of the trees, everybody. Stay focused. Keep up the energy. Keep up the fight. I know it's not easy. I want to thank Hoodie's Heroes once again. You're amazing people. Met with a bunch of them in Warwick the other day. Just beautiful people. And they just keep supporting one another and just creating a little environment in the corner of a coffee shop where they sit down and talk about real issues in their lives and just give each other a hug and share some veggies and eggs with each other. It's just a beautiful, peaceful way to live. Community again. So God bless you all. And we'll be back next time on Club Grubbery. Stay out of the trees. Bye for now.